Well, what is going on, football fans? Back at it with another New York Giants video as the NFL draft is set to kick off in about 6 hours. But there was some news for the New York Giants that I just wanted to give my overall opinion on, get to talk about it more in depth with you guys in a video format. Of course, I was live when it took place, doing the live stream with you guys. Had a lot of fun doing that. Make sure you're going over to Bad Dogs tonight. I think he's going to start at 7. I should be over there at about 7:30 as we prepare for the New York Giants to make selections at 5 and 7. First off, where's my head at going into the draft tonight, specifically for day one, the most important day for the New York Giants? We have to make sure we get two cornerstone pieces with those picks. I have not altered. It's my exact opinion I've had all along. I think the Giants are going to go tackle with one of those two selections, and I think they're going to go with a cornerback or an edge. Do I think the news that has come out about Daniel Jones has altered anything in the first round of this year's draft? The fact that the New York Giants decided not to extend Daniel Jones? Absolutely not. I've thought all along that Daniel Jones will not and should not be extended on the fifth-year option. The New York Giants decided to decline Daniel Jones' fifth-year option. It would have been about $22.5 million, I believe, somewhere in that neighborhood. And it only makes sense for the New York Giants not to extend him. Does this mean that the New York Giants are completely out on Daniel Jones? No. If you were a Giants fan, this should have been expected. This does not mean that the Giants have said to themselves, there's no chance that Jones won't be the starting quarterback going forward. I still expect them to do exactly what they said. Give Jones the opportunity to start the season. They looked at the quarterback draft class. They saw that it was not the strongest of classes. Now, maybe I'll be proven wrong and they'll take a quarterback tonight. I don't expect that to be the case, especially when you factor in that they signed Tyrod Taylor to a $6 million contract, but we'll have to wait and see. But as of now, I still expect Daniel Jones to be the starter in 2022, and if Jones has a strong year, he could at least be franchise tagged or potentially extended, depending on how well he does. But I've thought all along that the Giants will potentially be searching for a quarterback in 2023, and if an opportunity presents itself tonight in the draft to trade back and get future draft capital, mainly a future first-round pick, they have to at least be open to that. Joe Schoen, of course, never drafted Daniel Jones. He never drafted any of the players on this roster. This will be his first draft tonight, and we'll see how he feels. Other things that I'm looking for tonight, James Bradberry. We've heard rumors that the Giants eventually are going to move on from Bradberry. Will it be tonight? Is there a team like potentially the Cincinnati Bengals who need a cornerback who may not love any of the cornerbacks that are still on the board at 31, who may be open to potentially making a trade to get a guy like Bradberry? Several other teams that are looking to compete that could use the services of him. So that's something to look for out tonight as well. Will the Giants get an extra pick somewhere at some point in this draft, or will they be forced to potentially cut him? Regardless, I don't see Bradberry coming back for the team. But as far as Jones goes, I think it's the right decision. I think it was the only decision. When you factor in that Joe Schoen never drafted the guy, when you factor in the production since his rookie season has not been there. He has not grown. Now, you could blame some of that for sure on the offensive scheme and the overall support system for Daniel Jones. Well, this year and after tonight when we get our right tackle, the support system between the scheme and hopefully the improved offensive line should be at least improved dramatically for Daniel Jones. And he'll get an opportunity to prove that he's worth more than the $22.5 million that the New York Giants decided not to give him. But when you factor in the lack of production and the injury history and the fact that Joe Schoen had nothing to do with acquiring Daniel Jones in the first place, you should not be surprised at all. This is the right decision by the Giants. As far as Dexter Lawrence goes, some Giants fans may look at this move and they may say, 10.5 or whatever, I think it was $10.7 million for a defensive tackle. Is that really worth it? Let's talk about it. First off, it's only a one-year commitment. They're not committed anywhere past that. The other thing is, think about the player that left the Giants this year, Austin Johnson. I think he got a 2-year, $15 million contract, somewhere in that ballpark, a little bit over $7 million a year. So when I look at that and I say to myself, well, next year the market's going to be even higher, is Dexter Lawrence's market worth 10.7 when Johnson in next year's market, based off of about a 10% raise, would have been about an $8 million player? Yeah, I think it is. I think it was a good move by the New York Giants. Some people are going to look at the cap space and they're going to say, well, the Giants, they're cutting into their cap space. We're not going to be able to spend like crazy next year. I don't think that's going to be Joe Schoen's approach anyway. And anybody that tells you that the New York Giants are going to have $100 million in cap space next year is kidding themselves. You have to account for the draft picks that we're going to sign this year. They're only going to go up in terms of expense next year. And the draft picks we're going to have in the following draft, which will obviously be added on, and the Giants potentially could retain some other players. Daniel Jones is at least a possibility. He could be franchise tagged or signed to an extension. The Giants are going to use some wiggle room. They may also potentially extend a guy like Barkley on a franchise tag. Like, there's going to be options for this team going into next year. So I don't expect the New York Giants to spend like crazy next year either. I think Joe Schoen is going to continue to build through the draft. That's not to say that they won't spend at all, similar to like they did in 2020. I could see a couple of decently, high price signings, guys like Blake Martinez and James Bradbury. But I think the Lawrence signing based off the market is certainly worth it on a 1-year deal. This also probably diminishes the probability that the Giants, at least relatively early in this draft, will draft an interior defensive lineman. I wouldn't rule it out, but I would say that it's less probable than it was before finding out that Dexter Lawrence has now been extended on the 5th-year option, meaning he'll be with the New York Giants for at least 2 more years. It'll be interesting to see how they utilize Lawrence this year. Will he play more on the interior part of that defensive line? But regardless, as far as Joe Schoen goes with this decision, I think he made the right decision in both circumstances. Based off the defensive tackle market, Dexter Lawrence is 100% worth that number, and the opposite could be said for Daniel Jones. As of now, until I see a lot more evidence that he could stay healthy and be a consistent quarterback, which hopefully with the improved variables around him, he will be this year, currently is not worth $22.5 million. And I expect the Giants to take a quarterback in 2023 if he does not prove to be worthy of that. But does my opinion change for this night's draft at the quarterback position based off of this? No. This was baked in. I did not expect Daniel Jones to be extended 3 months ago. So there is no surprise here to me. Anybody that's writing on Twitter or giving their opinion that, oh, this might mean we may take Kenny Pickett or Malik Willis, I ain't buying into it. I expected this. No surprise here. Expect the New York Giants to stick to the script. I expect a tackle. I expect a defensive playmaker. But it's the draft. Expect the unexpected. We all learned that lesson in 2019. As always, guys, if you like what you watch, please subscribe. Drop a comment. Maybe give me a little thumbs up. Cheers.